Hello, everyone. Welcome to Special Delivery with FarEye. Thanks for being here with us. Today's our first show of 2023. I know it already feels like the year is halfway over, at least it does for me, but I guess it's still okay to say Happy New Year. So thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to a great show today and a great year of shows. Okay, for those of you joining for the first time, my name's Judd Marcello. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of FarEye. FarEye is a delivery logistics platform. We're a technology company. We help retailers, e-com players, and third-party logistics companies around the globe make their business better with more efficient deliveries and create more satisfied customers. Those customers that get their packages delivered and rely on great deliveries in order to get what they need. Special Delivery is a show where we bring in some of the smartest minds associated with deliveries, supply chain, etc. And we have a great chat, and we talk about what's going on in their world. We talk about what's going on the world of supply chain logistics and deliveries, and hopefully inform you in a way that you can go back to your business and to bring new ideas. So that's what we're going to do today. Today's episode is really interesting because today we're going to talk about some research that we, FarEye, recently did. We're going to be releasing this research. It's called the State of Last Mile Deliveries. It's a global survey of retailers and logistics providers. And so we got some responses to questions we asked about the state of deliveries for them and their business. What are they currently seeing? Where are the needs? What are they anticipating for 2023? And today we're going to focus specifically on retailers. Okay, we're going to talk about the responses that we got from retailers in this survey. And there's a few topics that we're going to hit. We're going to talk about driving down the cost of last mile delivery. Everybody wants to do that. We're going to talk about an improved customer experience. Probably the two most important things: driving down cost of deliveries, making them more efficient, and creating happier customers. And then we're going to talk about outsource networks, becoming a very big topic for retailers today. The pros and cons of outsourcing your delivery network. And then, ultimately, one of the things that we're probably still dealing with as retailers right now, the real cost of returns, the cost into the business, not just necessarily the monetary cost, but the cost on the operations side as well. And now, in just a few minutes, I'm going to bring in our special guest. Her name is Marina Mayer. Marina is the editor-in-chief of Supply Chain and Demand Chain Executive. It's a publication online, and also Food Logistics Magazine. So Marina's going to come and join us in just a few minutes to talk about what's happening from a retail side. We're going to get into those stats from our survey, and I think it's going to be really interesting. Before we do that, there's a couple ripped from the headlines news stories that I want to talk about. I think they're relative to today's conversation, but also just interesting in and of themselves. And the first one, I think this one's fascinating because it's about Walmart. It's about Walmart and it's about Salesforce. But really, it's about Walmart's side hustle, okay? Even Walmart has a side hustle today. And, what their side hustle is focused on is their technology, their own technology and delivery network. Of course, they are one of the leaders when it comes to retail and fulfillment and deliveries and managing a national network of carriers and what have you. So, they're good at this stuff. And they want to help their retailers be good at it too. Their customers be good at it too. And so what they've started to do is to offer their technology and their delivery network to retailers, and to be able to say, hey, come jump on our platform and we'll help you do better business. Yes, you may be in competition with us, but we're going to make you more efficient, and actually we can partner together. So how do we become a bigger part of your business? And ultimately, how does Walmart sell their technology? How do they sell their infrastructure and what they're good at? The interesting thing here is that they have now partnered with Salesforce. And, I'm sure most of us in B2B sales and marketing are familiar with Salesforce because we have to use it every day. But now what Walmart has done is they've reached a deal where they have put their technology called Go Local. They've put their technology, their app, into the Salesforce App Exchange, which is where they have thousands and thousands of technology providers putting themselves on display for Salesforce's customers to be able to use their technology in their own business. So massive part of what Salesforce does is work with retailers and e-com players. What do those people do? They look for technologies to create efficiencies in their business, and they rely on Salesforce's App Exchange to understand who is out there that they might be able to work with and who can service their needs. Now Walmart is going to have a primary spot in this app network to be able to on-sell their Go Local technologies, their services to retailers around the globe. It's a pretty big statement. And I think it's a really interesting partnership. And it's just another way that we're seeing technology having a massive role in deliveries, in supply chain logistics, right? And then in logistics and operations and logistics in general. So I thought that was really interesting. We'll share that link for everybody so you can have a read of the article yourself. But again, another sign that, there's a growing importance in this area. Okay, second article that I want to talk about. This one comes to us from Supply and Demand Chain Executive. Again, the editor-in-chief, Marina, she will be joining us in just a minute. But I want to talk about this one because I think this is also very much on trend right now. The title of this one is Supply Chain Visibility to Have the Biggest Impact on Retailers' Revenue. Okay, very interesting one, because what I saw in here was there was a stat that jumped out at me. 68% of retailers plan to increase retail technology spend in the next several years. 30% of those retailers say they're going to increase spend by 10%. That is significant. It's also a sign of the times when it comes to efficiency. Like, look what's happening, macroeconomic factors in the industry, downward pressure on consumer spending, inflation, recession, all of this. Retailers have to find a way to become more efficient because they're still going to have to get those packages delivered. They're still going to have to service customers, but maybe customers are going to be spending less. So when customers are spending less, retailers have to find a way to drive down the cost of their operations and their logistics and ultimately their deliveries. So how do they do that? They start to rely on technology. And there was a couple other stats that I wanted to call out on this one. 24% of retailers ranked operational efficiency, including energy and inventory monitoring managing, as top priority, right? So a strong delivery strategy is also a technology strategy, which is also an efficiency strategy. And this is just going to become I think a larger trend, if not a mandate for retailers, that they have to start thinking about efficiency. They have to start thinking about, the operations, retail operations as a mandate inside their organization, because when they start to see revenues going down, they still need to maintain profitability. They're going to look to become more efficient. So I thought this is a great article, one that you should definitely read after the show. Great article to share with you, but also a great way to introduce our guest, because Marina did the background work on that article. Marina, thanks for being here today. Marina Mayer is our guest. Marina, we're so happy to have you. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and let everyone know what you do and who you do it for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Judd, so much for having me. I didn't realize this was the first episode of 2023, so no pressure. But thank you. But everybody, I'm Marina Mayer. I'm the editor-in-chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive. And I've been editor-in-chief or editor of some sort in the supply chain world for about 12 years. And it's just an industry that I can't seem to get away from because I love it so much. And so I've loved watching how it has evolved and just become what it is today. So I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to having this conversation.
Yeah, again, thanks for being here, and we certainly value your opinion. You've been in it for a while, as you said, and I agree with you. It's hard to get away from it, and I think one of the reasons why it's just so dynamic.
Yes.
It's so dynamic because all of the factors involved in the industry, whether that be macroeconomic factors like we're experiencing today, the role of technology in the industry. As technology progresses, retailers find new ways to use it to make themselves more competitive. But then I think the thing that makes it most dynamic is the consumer, right? Retail is all about the consumer. It's all predicated on whether or not they're going to spend. And tracking the consumer and trying to figure out the consumer, that's a job in and of itself. So
absolutely,
I agree with you. Okay, look, let's do this. Let's just dive into the conversation. And I want to focus on what I said is probably the most important thing, or one of the most important topics on retailers' mind. And that would be reducing costs. Okay. One of the things that we found in our survey was that, cost was just like top of mind for retailers, just when it comes to deliveries specifically. But it's not just deliveries. This is all about backup the value chain when it comes to logistics and supply chain management. But certainly, on the pointy end of this, when delivering products to consumers, retailers are now absolutely fixated. The majority of them are fixated on driving costs out of the business. What in your work, in supply chain, like what have you, does that make sense? Are you seeing the same kind of priorities right now from retailers?
Yes, we are. And we're seeing them from different variances. So we see retailers, they're trying to get their cost down, but then there's fuel, the rise in fuel. So that, has a big play into how last mile works. And then there's the other side of it, kind of the flipping of the coin is the returns process. And so they're trying to figure out how to manage the cost of what happens when the consumer doesn't like the product that they received and don't want to go back to the in-store brick and mortar to return it, or doesn't have that ability to. But cost is a big issue. And we're seeing a lot of retailers and a lot of these companies that we cover. We have many awards across our brands, our top supply chain or top software and tech providers award. We just launched a top tech startup. What all of those have in common is the solutions that they're trying to provide for the supply chain industry. And you touched on it earlier in your report, is the visibility part. It's being able to see end to end and track and trace where this product is throughout its entire journey, because even one little misstep, just, it's not just a brand thing. It's just trying to figure out what those costs are, where they live, and how we can get through reducing them.
Yeah, it's you hit the right word, visibility. And in your article, you stated it's going to have the supply chain visibility is going to have the biggest impact on retailers' revenue, and that visibility it's all about exactly what it says is visibility. And if you aren't able to see where potential problems may be, current problems are, there's no way that you're going to fix them. So even on the graphic here, if you look at these top reasons, it's where retailers want to reduce costs. It's fuel costs. It's optimizing deliveries from a location perspective. It's the labor, right? It's delivery failure, returns, routing, etc. Like all of this is about visibility, and all of this is about data. And I think that's why your article was so right in pointing out that retailers are now looking to technology to help them gather this data and then to be able to make sense of it in the first place.
And it's also inventory management. I mean, how many times have you gone to a store recently and there's nothing on the shelves, but they have boxes and boxes and boxes of product sitting in the back room because they just don't have they're manually bringing it in inventory wise. They don't have the technology to scan and get it out there quickly. It's becoming a big problem.
Yeah. It's a great point. And do you have a point of view on that relationship between, the supply chain piece, the inventory management, ultimate delivery? Like what are you seeing in your work, and how retailers are trying to approach those three pillars?
So I think retailers are kind of in a sticky spot because they're trying to be all things to all consumers. And at the end of the day, that's not kind of how they were designed to be. And so, when COVID hit, they're like, well, we need drive up, we need delivery, we need this, but then they don't have the people now to fund that and to make sure that that channel exists. And then, when you implement technology into certain parts, you have to make sure that that technology is implemented across the way. And so we're seeing a lot of these companies, they're either not completely sold on implementing this technology. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe they don't understand it. We hear a lot of that. Like, where do we start? How do we know what's right for our business or to fill this need that we have? We get that a lot from a lot of our readers and the people that we talk to. But so it's financials, it's understanding it, but then it's just actually following through with it. There's many studies that have shown the companies that implemented technology early on in COVID are still today the most successful. And the ones that did not are still lagging behind because they're trying to play catch up in an industry that you can never get caught up in. Every day there's something going on in the supply chain. There's something always new.
You know what I'm in just hearing what you're saying, it just made me think a little bit about the state that retailers are in right now. With the rush of COVID and all the optimism behind e-commerce and et cetera. People started throwing money at that opportunity. They started throwing money. They started throwing people. They started throwing options, like you say, fulfillment options. They were trying everything they could to capture all the demand that was out there. And in the process, maybe what's happened is people just extended themselves too far and said, look, we've got to get after this. Let's just throw what we know, what we can throw at this, and we'll figure it out later. And maybe we're in that figure it out later stage right now. Maybe we're in that place now where it's like, okay, we did drones, we did curbside pickup, we did all these things. It's time to pull back a little bit. We don't have to do it all. We have to figure out what actually needs to be done. Right. And I think that's the challenge that retailers face today is, okay, we went after it. Now we got to pull back. How do we level this off in a way that's sustainable for our business, but also meets customer expectations? And I think that lastly, and maybe I'd love to get your opinion on this. I think what we're going to start to see is retailers starting to take back some of the power in the relationship, because I think for the last 2 years, it's really been with the consumer more than anything. Not to say that we're going to throw the consumers by the wayside, but I think retailers have to take control of this in order to make sure their businesses are healthy.
Oh, and I totally agree with that. And I am starting to already see that as a consumer. Somebody who buys something online, in the past, if you needed to return it, it cost more for them to ship it back. So they're like, just keep it. But now that's not happening. Now they want it back, and they're trying to figure out how to consolidate packaging. And here's all these different drop stops. And so they're trying to get creative to kind of, like, to your point, take back that power and say, you know what, I know you're the consumer and you don't like the product, but it's still our product now. If you're going to return it, it's ours. So I totally agree with that. I'm starting to see that now.
All right. And look, I think this is a good opportunity to just shift the conversation a little bit to the customer experience side of things. So, that's one of the things we focused on in our survey. And in the spirit of, taking back power, if you're a retailer, that's fine, but we still have to deliver a standout customer experience in order to maintain customer relationship, win customers, have satisfied customers. And some of the things that we saw in our survey from a customer experience that retailers were focused on right now were things like fast delivery, low shipping costs, delivery tracking. There is still some power that consumers want. And what they want is, at least they want visibility in their deliveries as well. And they want some level of control over those deliveries to make sure that what they're bought is going to be delivered when it said it was going to bought, when the retailer said it was going to be delivered. What's interesting here is one of the other things I've seen is that now, some retailers were trying to say, look, yes, speed's important, but let's just focus on accuracy. So instead of promising next day delivery, we're going to promise you an accurate delivery in a range of time. So what's convenient for you? So meaning that they still want to accommodate the consumer, but now they have to do it with a little bit more control. Have you started to hear more about the changes that retailers are taking when it comes to the experience that they're trying to deliver?
Yes. In fact, while you were talking, I was trying to think of who produced the report. We just published it a couple of weeks ago, I believe, or maybe it was shortly before the new year. But it was a report about how a lot of these retailers are starting to refocus their efforts on that customer experience. And they're saying, we may not be able to do same day or next day delivery. We may need to take 3 to 5 days, like how it used to be, 5 years ago. To ship you your product, because we want to make sure it's correct. And they did this whole consumer survey, and consumers were surprisingly okay with that, because they don't want to mess with the returns process. They don't want to mess with all of that goes into it. They would rather have what they ordered in full, in its package, not damaged. If it's produce or any kind of perishable, they want it, safe. They want it edible. So, we're starting to see this shift where companies are starting to take back that, same day, next day, just to kind of be able to deliver that. And they're understanding that they can't be that kind of a company to their customers. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No. I agree with you. There is nothing wrong with that. And I think that, maybe we've just, as retailers, gone a little bit too far to accommodate the consumer. Yes. And that's not the consumer's fault in a way. It was just the pull of what was happening, I think, towards that. And I think that what we can't lose sight of as retailers is we still need to innovate around that experience. There is still lots to be done around that. There are other ways, as opposed to the Amazon effect of next day, same day, within an hour delivery. It doesn't necessarily need to be around speed. There are other ways to create a unique experience from your brand with the consumer that they will value and ultimately come to appreciate long into your relationship as consumer and brand.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think they're starting to understand that too. When COVID hit, everybody kind of just jumped. We didn't know where we were jumping or what we were jumping into. Everybody just kind of jumped because they felt that was the knee-jerk reaction to make in order to stay in business. Yeah. And now they've realized trial and error, this works, this doesn't, let's regroup.
Yeah. And I think one of the areas that really got hit around that and the regroup piece was returns or reverse logistics. Yes. And I want to talk about that for a little bit. And I'll tell a quick story. Someone that I know over the holidays, they ordered a fire pit for their backyard, and it was I saw it. It was sizable. It was like 5 feet by 5 feet, and it was huge. And it came in the mail, got delivered, and it came damaged, a massive dent in the side of it. Yeah. And it was an expensive product. So they called the company up and said, hey, look, we've got a challenge here. Still, how do we send this back to you? We can't accept this. And the company just said, keep it. We'll send you a new one. And that has become a big trend now, because the cost of bringing that product back, whether it's a 5 foot by 5 foot, fire pit or not, is expensive to the retailer. Everything involved, whether it's the logistics part, the delivery part, whatever it may be, right? The storage part. And they're just saying, forget it. We're going to dump. We'd rather eat it than have to deal with it. Like, that's not sustainable. When it comes to the returns or reverse logistics, what are you hearing about from the people that you're working with? Like, what's top of mind for them?
So you hit it. It's not sustainable. Yeah. And it's not. And it's not because somebody is losing out, and it's usually the retailers that are losing out because now they're minus a product. A lot of times it's a packaging issue. Yeah. It's, I order a lot online just because it's the nature of how my life is right now. And sometimes I'll get boxes inside of boxes with all kinds of plastic wrapping. And it's literally like a pair of shoes or something that you can't break, you can't damage. And it's just amazing to me because when you return things, they want it in the original packaging. So you got to package it back up, put it all back in. And it's just mind-boggling to me that, it's not sustainable when you lose product, but it's also not sustainable from an environmental issue. And I know that in a lot of these shows that are coming up this year, and a lot of them that have happened last year, that's a big topic. I mean, we talk about it with a lot of folks. It's not sustainable to continue this charade of the returns. We have to figure out a better way. And it's reversing kind of everything what these companies are doing when they're laying out their sustainable carbon footprint, strategies. And then they have this whole returns mess. It's kind of undoing everything. And we need to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, just take this. These are what you're seeing in the graphic here, are just some statistics from the survey we ran. One of them, 30% of orders are expected to be returned. Retail online orders are expected to be returned. But look at the cost of sales, 27% total cost of sales. That's what returns are. That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. That's what isn't sustainable. And the interesting things about returns is, look, you're always going to have a return. But at the magnitude that it exists today, it's a problem that doesn't need to exist. Right. And it doesn't need to exist because there are better ways to shape the initial buying experience, set expectations ahead of time about what a returns process is going to mean to the consumer. Like, hey, you're going to carry some cost out of this. There's a way to set to make sure that you can avoid this problem in the very beginning. And that could be through that combination of logistics, inventory, and delivery. And then ultimately just the consumer experience when they click buy in their cart. Solving the returns problem before the returns need to happen is probably the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for retailers.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, there are some companies, they're just starting to do this now. When you go to place the order, it'll tell you when it will arrive. Now, I know Amazon's been doing that for quite some time, but I'm talking other retailers that are just now getting caught up. And they'll tell you when it's arrived. And we did another study, and it proved that most of the returns come from they arrived too late. And that's an interesting thing to think about. So if you implement some kind of a technology or some kind of software on the back end in your marketplace portal that can tell consumers, I know you ordered it now, but you're not going to get it by Saturday. You're probably going to get it by next Thursday. They may not even place that order. Now, granted, you're going to lose the sale, but you may have saved yourself the return.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's the opportunity cost
Yes.
of providing that visibility.
Yes.
One that what retailers probably want to take on. And honestly, what I love about this is it's just hitting so many topics, because it goes back to what Walmart was trying to do. They were trying to provide technology to these smaller players so they can minimize costs like this, right? It's providing visibility and a level of control to the consumer to say, I'm going to make a decision for myself because I can't have a late delivery and I don't want to have to deal with the returns myself. So I'm going to thank you for providing me this information. This is convenient to me, right? This is going to work. So I agree with you. These are the types of solutions that we have to provide before the purchase is made, right? As part of the experience upfront, so we can avoid the return situation. All right, look, Marina and I were talking before. We knew we could talk for an hour.
I know.
I want to be cognizant of time. We've got like 5 minutes left. I do want to get your point of view on another trend that we're seeing with retailers when it comes to delivery specifically, and that is outsourcing their delivery network, diversifying their delivery network. Tell us what's happening from that point of view in your world.
Well, it's happening, and it's happening whether people like it or not. And we're seeing a lot more of these 3PLs kind of get involved in this scenario. 3PLs used to, they just drove the trucks. They just got it from point A to point B. And now they're starting to get kind of more in the mix of, hey, we can provide all these additional services, use us. And it's interesting because that's never, I've been covering supply chain for 12 years. It's never been like that. But there's a lot of near sourcing. The French sourcing we're seeing is a big thing. Globalization is a huge thing. That's great that you can manufacture cheaper overseas, but it takes longer to get to the customer, and maybe that opens up doors for it to become damaged or spoiled, whatever the case is. So, this diversifying, this trying to, pick apart the business and figure out where the holes are and find the matches. It's happening now, and it's happened, when ports shut down and when things start to shut down, you have to have plan Bs, Cs, and Ds.
And what's funny about that is the plan B, Cs, and Ds are now becoming the plan A, right?
Yes.
In terms of the diversification. Like even in our survey, if you see here in the blue bubble on the right, 60% of retailers are going to be focused on outsourcing or diversifying their networks this year and into the future. And I think it just makes sense, right? Yeah. Because of all of the variables included in the sourcing, the shipping, the servicing, of customer deliveries in our world, FarEye's world, it's something we're dealing with regularly when we're talking to our current customers. And even prospects. One of the first questions they're asking is, can you help me with outsourcing my fleet?
Right.
And I think it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this is in your article specifically, is retailers looking at technology to help them do that, because it's one thing to have it in-house and control it. But when you all of a sudden decide to make the strategic decision that diversifying our delivery network, outsourcing it, is going to be beneficial to us and our customers, you got to figure out a way to control that, or it'll get unwieldy.
Yeah, I agree. They've identified they have a problem meeting a need. And so they've decided, and they've come to terms with, I need to find somebody else to help me. Yeah.
And that's why I think, like, when I look to your publication, it's a great source of information for me. It's one I read quite often, but it's also one that our viewers today and people who watch this video later on, you're doing a great job, a great service to retailers and those that visit your publication, because I find it extremely informative, because it's hard to go figure out what to do next. And I think that you do a great service to them in providing them direction. And
oh, thank you.
It's fantastic.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate what you do. And I appreciate you being here today. Look, we're at time, unfortunately. Like, I feel like going. We can
That's
go.
insane. I hope we had another hour.
We're going to bring you back, all right? We're going to bring you back.
I would love that. Absolutely.
And continue this conversation, and maybe we'll talk about our research from a logistics side, but we also want to hear a little bit more from you about trends that you're seeing in the market. So how about if we do that? We'll have you back in the next couple months, and we'll go all in.
I would love that. I could talk about trends till my ears are blue.
All right, cool. Thank you, Marina. And thanks to everybody who joined us today on Special Delivery. It was a good episode. Like, we skimmed the surface. It wasn't even fair to all of you that showed up. We got to go deeper. We owe you more. So we're going to be back in February. We're going to be back in March. We're going to be back in April. We'll make sure that Marina is lined up to join us again. And we'll bring some other great guests too. And hopefully we'll see you. So thanks for joining us, Special Delivery today. See you in February.